It is a beautiful day today. This is the daily headline newspaper update on the Insider Podcast. I am Kayode Sonny, and with me I have The Nation, Vanguard, The Guardian, The Punch, Business Day, and outside Nigeria I have Daily Mirror. Starting off from the front page of The Nation today, we have here the big story. Banks face tough conditions and recapitalization drive. Rider, CBN targets strong banks capable of supporting government's $1 trillion GDP by 2030. On page 4, federal government moves to vet shutdown of varsities with rider panel raised after parley. On page 5, Oyo lawmakers are daggers drawn with speaker with rider 17 members form group. On page 2, police plan data centers for 774 council headquarters. Edo female lawmakers sent out of plenary for improper dressing. That's on page 5. On page 3, President backs NDLEA Save Our Families advocacy campaign. And another story, Tinubu not discriminating against North, says Shettima. Another one right here, economy attracted $24 billion FX inflows in Q1. CBN ends from M verification. And on page 3, National Assembly reconvenes today after recess. And that's on page 25. Another one on page 3, El-Rufai sues Kaduna Assembly. Okay, moving on to the Vanguard now. On page 5, cholera, federal government shopping for emergency vaccine. With rider, as Nigeria records 54 deaths, 1,579 cases in 32 states. NCDC, poor sanitation, contaminated water, reason for spread, says Sanwo-Olu. Display product essential information. Lagos government directs stores. Okay, now to page 12 of Vanguard. Protesters want declaration of emergency in Rivers as Fubara alleges protesters attempt to bomb hotel. Okay, on page 7, we have this one. Ojezwa loses bid to disqualify Ighodalo. Will make youth leaders of today, not future, says Ighodalo. And we have this one right here. Forex, CBN discontinues price verification system as criteria for imports. That's on page 19. On page 9, from pen to profit, federal government reaffirms commitment to free press. On page 13, insecurity, 2,600 killed, 50 communities record 135 attacks in Benue, says Amnesty International. Let's see some other stories. On page 13, 432 billion naira probe report. Ex-Governor El-Rufai drags Kaduna Assembly to court. On page 10, Osun Monarch, 4 others docked for alleged arson robbery. And the last one on the sports page, we have this one, 2026 FIFA World Cup. Ogbade tips Bafana to qualify ahead Super Eagles. And now moving on to The Guardian on page 6, the big story, out of pocket. High cost of care hits public hospitals, uninsured patients. And on page 9, Northeast home to over 2 million uneducated children, says UNICEF. On page 5, Nigeria recorded 75,000 new HIV infections in 2023, says NACA. On page 6, shadow of presidential aircraft hangs over NAS emergency sitting today. On page 7, hundreds of APC members decry hunger, decamp to PDP in Ondo. On page 22, Naira depreciation adds 17.8 trillion Naira to public debt in 3 months. On page 3, cholera, Nigeria records 54 deaths, 1,579 cases in 32 states. And the last one on page 5, Murik, Arewa group knocks Sokoto government over passage of anti-sultanate bill. Oh, interesting. And now to the Punch newspaper now on page 22. Dangote refinery, crude supply crisis threatens oil investments. Operators warn federal government. But rather, federal government urged to deepen investors' confidence. Dangote allays fear over refinery fire. And on page 21, stress test on banks necessitated recapitalization, says CBN. On page 2, government ASU meets to avert strike in universities. On page 21, federal government banks begin talks on nationwide broadband rollout. On page 7, 423 billion naira theft. El-Rufai sues Kaduna Assembly, challenges probe. And another one on the front page of the Punch. On page 12, we have Tinubu backs NDLEA to end drug abuse trafficking. On page 2, National Assembly resumes plans 2023 budget implementation extension. On pages 4 and 5, how we killed commercial sex worker for ritual. And that's coming from the suspect. And the last one on page 10, PDP candidate receives APC defectors, vows to unseat Ayedatiwa. And moving on to Business Day now, Ethiopia, UAE, Turkey strip Nigerians of visa on arrival, e-visa. And another one, NNPC's crude was fingered in Dangote IOC spat. On page 32 of Business Day, said Chapel Hill then hand raised 245 billion naira to boost Nigeria's infrastructure. On page 29, CBN building resilient banks to support federal government's $1 trillion GDP target, says Cardoso. And the last one, bomb scare. Fubara says detractors targeting state of emergency in Rivers. And finally, outside of Nigeria, on the Daily Mirror, we have Foden flies home for birth of baby boy. And another one, inside, Football League fixtures pull out. Another one, star murder plot trial. Holly kidnapped kid, accused had bondage gear and chloroform caught hairs. And those are all the headlines from the newspapers today. It's been a pleasure having you tune in today again. Please kindly share your reaction and comments on the question and answer box below this post. Once again, thank you for tuning in. See you next time.